Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Dodgeball Podcast. In this episode, we will be recapping the events of the Elite South Region Round 2 tournament that took place this past weekend. Here to help me do so once again is Joe Martinez, Joseph Chincarini, Marie Garrigue, and last but not least, Vaughn Kelly. Guys, thank you so much for joining me again and for lending me your time to help recap what took place. If I may be so bold, I think it really helped shed light on the what's going on in the South, and it gave me a great opportunity to learn more about you guys, and I'm really excited to do it again. So, without further ado, let's just go ahead and start with the reintroductions, and we'll start with you, Joe.
Joe Martinez, my team is Outsiders, and all I did was play this tournament.
Awesome. How about you, Joseph?
Hi, I'm Joseph Chincarini, captain of Wrecking Ballz, and I didn't actually play that much during 8.5 this time, but I guess we'll get to that here in a little bit. So,
fair enough. And Vaughn?
Vaughn Kelly, play for Outsiders. Also help contribute for the Dodgeball Tribune, just feeding Tyler some info on kind of what went which way, and then he kind of puts all that together after with my input, and then watching some of the live streams for the recap article.
Awesome, and we'll be doing that in audio form in just a second. And how about you, Marie?
Marie Garrigue, and I captain Southern Glory this time.
Fantastic. Very cool. Well, just right off the bat, kind of want to ask each one of you kind of like a broad question. How did round 2 differ from round 1? Let's just start with that, and we'll go ahead and start with Joe.
Walking in, the floors had way more grip. It felt like the floors last time were super dusty, and we were playing on ice the whole time. Lighting was kind of dark. People were still kind of buzzing about the A-Rush thing, and so when Tim Poon showed up, he wasn't allowed to give any instruction without being asked about that.
A couple of things. So you guys played, this was this in Louisiana again? Or New Orleans?
Yes.
New Orleans?
Yeah. No, it was in Shreveport.
Shreveport, okay. Was that the same venue as last month? Or
No.
Okay.
Shreveport's like on the border of Texas and Louisiana.
I knew that. I just, for some reason, I was like, I wonder why not New Orleans, but that's just me being me and slowly catching up with the world. So Tim Poon was there.
Yes.
Was he there to help, or because Adrenaline Rush was not? They didn't participate, did they?
No, they didn't play. So Tim took over running the tournament instead of Glenn, Mark, or Tim Wells coming. Tim Poon specifically requested to run this tournament, and so they handed him the reins to run it, and so he was there working with us.
Nice. Was there any? So you said like he wasn't able to give instructions unless he did something about Team Awesome, or can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so A-Rush, it was just he was just giving the captain's meeting and stuff, and people were just asking about it, and he didn't really comment on it. He just said if we wanted to know to talk to him after the tournament.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
What happened with A-Rush? Why didn't you guys play? And
yeah,
and he said he would talk about it after the tournament if people wanted to. I'm not sure if anyone actually did talk to him, but I haven't heard the story if anyone got it, and I figured that would probably spread pretty quickly if someone did. But
yeah. So I definitely don't want to like air out other people's laundry on here. I guess would it be fair to say though, if people want to know what happened, they can just reach out to him and find out?
Not sure.
Yeah. 1 second.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say talk to them directly, right?
Yeah, instead of speculating and having the rumor mill go about. So I guess it's like a follow-up question for you again, Joe. Just trying to keep you on the spotlight here. Do you feel like there was a difference? Because remember how we kind of talked about last event where like, hey, Adrenaline Rush isn't here, it's anybody's game now. But then you're kind of like, no, it's anybody's game regardless. Was that same mentality or feeling kind of carried over into round 2?
I think it was less of a factor this time than it was the first time. Had A-Rush showed up and played, then yeah, again, it would have been like a shock factor. Oh crap, this team's here, and that's the higher level of competition. But it didn't show up, so it was pretty much similar to. It was the exact same teams, except Hitmen showed up this time. and so everybody kind of knew what the other teams were bringing to the table. So it was just a matter of kind of playing, outsmarting each other, and not having the A-Rush shadow over us.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and move on to Joseph. For you, how was round one how was round two different from round one?
Just like Joe said, the courts were better. Lighting was a little off. I was actually there pretty early when Tim got there. There was nobody inside. It was freezing in there. They had it down to like 60 degrees. So we had to, adjust that. They really weren't prepared as far as like last time. It was about the same. When Tim did show up, they had to wait for Anthony Miller to show up with the balls, and then finds out there's no needles. So things kind of started a little late. But as far as that, competition went good. A-Rush wasn't there. I was surprised to see Tim Poon there, but nothing too crazy like on that part. I mean, a little bit later on in the day it changed, but it was pretty good. We had a good time for what it was.
Gotcha. And maybe I prefaced the question a little incorrectly. What I meant was like, was there a difference in like teams, players showing up, like the competitive scene? I guess knowing that the venue wasn't as what do you call it? Oh, what's the word I'm thinking of? Ideal. I guess in terms of like setup and the administrative portion not being as ideal, that might be something that's pretty good to address. But I definitely don't want to like rag into the whole setup unless you guys felt like that changed the whole atmosphere. And maybe I can.
Well, we ran into time restraints at the end. No Sting actually ended up finishing really. They didn't finish around robin. There were some for like No Sting first in the second place rounds. They were only like the best of one. So not being prepared or ready at the beginning kind of ran through the rest of it. As far as the teams went competition, I am not going to lie. Outsiders came in. Vaughn was lighting people up in the head all night. I mean, it was pretty exciting for us to watch from the bleachers. Hitmen showing up did have a little bit more of a spin on it just because they didn't come with a full team, but the people that did show up weren't bad. They were actually doing pretty good. They were playing pretty smart. There'll definitely be something to look at in round three when Johnny and I think the rest of the team shows up. Everybody else, it ran about even. Voodoo came in. They were playing pretty strong early. I'm like not too sure if there's anything else I can add to that on that part there. It was a really good competitive match. I know with my team personally, we were struggling a little bit, and then kind of picked it up. We had some internal things that came up that caused a little bit of ripple.
Gotcha. So I guess the fact that some of the inconsistencies with needles not being there or balls showing up late, it did really impact the event overall. I definitely don't want to spend too much time harping on that though. So let's just go ahead and go to Vaughn. And Vaughn, for you, like, how did you feel round two differed from round one?
As far as teams go, the only things that changed were Hitman showed up. They brought David and Randy, who are two of their normal players, and then they kind of filled in the gaps with some people from Dallas. Brian Miners came down. He used to live in Dallas and play with Dallas Dodgeball, but he moved up to Milwaukee, so he came down for this, and he should be back down for round three. So they had some fill-ins. Stingers, who took second in 8.5 at round one, they weren't there. As far as I know, the plan is for them to be at round three, but so we just kind of filled in their gap with Hitman showing up. I think a lot of the teams you could tell were more prepared this round. With round one, I guess, teams come in not really knowing what to expect. They practice and they do whatever they need to do to get their teams ready, but they don't have a base to strategize against specific teams, having not seen them yet. And in this round, you could see where some teams got better because they adjusted their strategy after having played in round one. And you could definitely tell the teams that didn't put as much work in, they got kind of run over a little bit more than they did in round one. But other than that, I mean, it was definitely different, and there were a lot of changes, but it wasn't real crazy. It was just mostly you could tell the teams that had kind of put in work since round one.
Gotcha. And I was kind of going to say this may be a little bit bold, but I was looking at Dodgetronic's performance last round one. It looked like they got knocked out right away. Mm-hmm. However, in this series, they took out Hitman. So it sounds like Hitman's a team that we might talk a little bit more about. But just looking at the bracket, Dodgetronic might be one of those teams that kind of just said, hey, you know what, round one was kind of like our wake-up call. Let's come back more fierce. And it looks like they did pretty well. Unless I'm reading this bracket incorrectly, third place is what they took.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, there was a noticeable difference in their play, at least in 8.5, because they were just doing so much better than I think they did in round one. And Ben talked about that last podcast that, they hadn't played in a while, and that they knew that they needed to up their game. And from what I saw just from the sidelines, they did.
Awesome.
Yeah, they had most of their round one roster there. They had a new guy who they call him Boo. Well, he's not new. He's played before. He just wasn't at round one. But he was definitely like a difference maker on their team from round one. Like he was kind of their main offensive threat throughout the day in both 8.5 and No Sting. And he was the loudest guy in the gym. He was full of energy. He brought like a different kind of attitude to Dodgetronic. So he was, he would like suicide someone and just scream the whole time he was flying across the line, or he would just yell at the opponent across. Like if someone was charging up on him, he'd be like, come on, come get it.
Right.
And so it was a lot of hype and a lot of energy. And I think it pumped up the rest of the guys on that team. Ben's pretty quiet on the court. Rachel's pretty quiet on the court. They don't have a lot of loud guys, but he was definitely doing enough for all of them. And I think they all kind of fed off of that. So.
And they were making the plays, right? They had a lot of catches that I saw, and some good teamwork. So I think it worked out well for them.
And you said this guy's name was Boo.
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 BOO. Okay.
He doesn't like people to use his real name.
I see.
I was told by Ben that he doesn't like people to use his government name.
All right.
That sounds like some kind of conspiracy theory or something. Like,
don't use my government name. All right. I do want to get more into Dodgetronic and talk about the Hitman, but real quick, to kind of go back to the big differences that were noticeable. How about you, Marie? From not only just open, but from women's as well. What did you notice that was different this time around?
Well, one of the things is, for us, Shreveport isn't like a hub of dodgeball out here in the South. So everybody traveled there. It wasn't a home environment for anybody. And so what I noticed was every team changed up some. I don't think there was, and you guys can correct me, but in open or 8.5 and No Sting, there wasn't a single team that was untouched, right? We added Hitmen. We had Spitfire to Carbon change, and there were some roster changes there. Even Outsiders had Elijah added and Kim added for round two. So, every team was a little bit different. I think, I think it did give a little bit of a different feel just because there were a little bit of different players on the court. And in women's, and I think we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into women's, it was, we played a different format, and the same thing happened there where teams changed up a little bit with the exception of one team, and I'm thinking on my feet. So, I think that changed the dynamic some, but even everybody traveling, either they came in the night before or they drove up that morning. I think, that impacted players some. Nobody really knowing the area or being from there for the most part. I think it impacted things. I don't know if it was positive or negative. I just think it certainly had an impact on it. And I think, if we're looking at it that way, some of the things that the guys were sharing about not being prepared or whatever, I think that everybody traveling in, this wasn't a home court for anybody. Nobody had a house to run over to go grab needles. I mean, I think that probably fed into some of the, if we call it lack of preparedness or whatever we want to call it. I think that's part of it too. So, but overall, I think it was a fun tournament. I think there were probably some surprises in play that we can get into, but I enjoyed it.
Gotcha.
Sounded like we were a bunch of drug addicts. No one had a house to run to get needles.
I mean, Vaughn was screaming at our car while we were flying 75 miles per hour on the highway.
Oh, 75. It was
we
at
were
least
flying
like
75.
90.
You were going 90.
We were trying to catch up to you.
Jeez. So much to comment on. Do I want to let that go or do I want to dig in more? I kind of want to do. Joe, you want to kind of paint the scene a little bit? Let us know what was going on there.
Oh, we were on the highway. I didn't even know that they had left close to when we left to. And so we were on the highway. I mean, I try not to speed. I might have been going like 80. But in my rear view, I could see a car that looked like Marie's. And I wasn't sure if it was the van because, I don't know. I was just like not sure. And then as they pulled up, I saw luxurious hair flowing out the window. And I was like, oh, that's Vaughn. And so he gets out and he's screaming, "Get off the road!"
He's hanging halfway out the window. Yeah. It was wild.
Somehow I knew that when you said luxurious hair, I was like, he's probably talking about Vaughn.
Yeah, it was Vaughn.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
Yeah, it was definitely me.
Flying in the wind.
I did see him almost lose his sunglasses.
No.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't have yelled get out of the way or whatever I yelled, but we were trying to get past you and then you just got over in front of us going way slow. And then you finally moved back over.
Being a defensive driver.
Got to be safe. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and go into some of the teams and back to the tournament. So, starting with you, Joe, and just kind of get back into, like I said, the tournament and teams that surprised you. Aside from Hitman and Dodgetronic, were there anybody else that showed up, looked like they did their homework and were ready to play for round two?
I thought Voodoo definitely showed up. They surprised a lot of people in round one. Because kind of how we said in the last podcast, we had played against all those guys before, and we didn't think we were going to have that much of a problem with them. And the way they played together with this new roster that they had shocked a lot of people. And then coming into round two, it was like, okay, we saw what they had. We'll see. We'll see if they do anything really to change it this time. And they didn't. They seemed to stay on the grindstone, and they seemed to be pretty much employing similar strategies. They were communicating. They were playing. They were playing pretty well. I mean, I don't remember exactly how well they did in 8.5, but in Nosting they came out and got second again.
Nice. Let's see. Do you want to kind of ask about specific players, but we can probably save that for the other section. How about you, Joseph?
Voodoo came out real strong. Trying to think. I mean, they weren't as. I feel like in the first round they were a little bit more wild. This round they were really working together, staying together. They weren't making too many plays by themselves or anything like that. I mean, they beat us in the round robin. I think I have to go back and check the bracket. I think they got fifth in the bracket play. Carbon, they actually did a lot better this round. They did a lot better. I know they're going to have some changes coming up here pretty soon because I think Eli is
deploying or going to.
He's deployed out, so I'm not sure how they're going to fit that void there. Yoshi is with Hitman with Brian, and Brian's something else. So I mean, he can play. So that was like I said, when Johnny comes back and they get some of the other players there, it's going to be a really solid team. Trying to think, there's just so many things that kind of happened that weekend with the teams and players. Cat 5, I felt like they struggled a little bit. I can't remember that. I can't remember how many games they won during the round robin, but I remember they were having some trouble during 8.5, and then they beat us last time in no sting in round 1, but this round they had a lot of issues with the out of bounds line, the hard line in the center. They kept going over it. So I mean, we beat them that way, but it was by default. So trying to think of and then Outlaws beat us. There's like I said, there's a ton of stuff going on this round that was a little bit different. For my team, I don't. The way we played, I don't feel it was the way we played in round 1 and some of the other tournaments we had been playing in. It was definitely a different change in pace, but they still came through really strong. I mean, and that's really all I got for that part there. I don't know if there's anything else I can add. Like I said, there's tons of things that happen.
Gotcha. And this, go ahead.
Just kind of piggybacking off of that, I think a big thing for Carbon was adding Jalen Gardner from Dynasty. That made a huge difference for them. So,
Jalen is from.
Jalen's from Michigan.
Oh wow!
And he plays with Dynasty. That's his team, but he lives in the DFW area, so he subs in here and there when he can, I guess. And I mean, he plays in pretty much every tournament here that's not Elite, but for Elite, he kind of subs in on some of the lower level teams because of the travel rules. And so he jumped in with Carbon since Carbon hadn't placed last time. And yeah, it made a pretty big difference for them.
Gotcha. And you kind of brought up a good point, and I was going to start with Joseph on this one, and that was you guys had was surprised to see that Wrecking Ballz was in the Twin Cities tournament. Did that help you guys prepare for this event at all?
Well, the few of us that did go, it was Raziel Sanchez, Nick Venegas, and then Justin Ashby, and then myself. I mean, I've done other nationals, so I've seen what's out there, and I know what's out there. Those guys are all young and new, and it really helped them kind of really, build their network and kind of see other people and what they're playing styles are like, how people, it's played so much differently. Like that whole format in Minnesota was something we were all new to. We read the rules, but reading the rules and then actually applying and seeing them are like, it really changes the game. I mean, even from last year to this year with the Elite rules, really, I'm trying to get the rest of the players on my team just to take the test just so they can understand they can actually make better plays and see things. I know the guys that have taken it, they're able to see what's kind of going on. But it's made a huge difference. I know Justin and Nick have both voiced it to me, just some of the stuff they've seen. And I visually have seen it in their gameplay with those three that have gone to that type of tournament. And you can just, the way they think and the way their processes are going and the way they're playing is a lot different from when they first came in. It's definitely a lot more tactful.
That's interesting. So you're saying by having them take the ref test, that might actually help them improve their dodgeball game?
Yeah, I think so. Because, I mean, every time I go back through and I read, it's more – it's not so much like improving their physical, but it's just their game smarts. Like they can actually pay attention to see things happening. They can look for things. Because there's always something kind of going on. I mean, I'm not going to say this was one of the best rounds ever played as far as reffing. Reffing's definitely helped out a lot, and they're doing a lot. And there's a lot of things going on that people didn't see or catch. And you go back later in the footage and you see it, and it's kind of like, oh wow, that should have happened this way, or why didn't anybody see that? But just being able to understand the sequence. We had I think we had one play where one of my guys got really upset and threw a ball down and walked off the court, but it was. If he just would have waited and took his time and spoke to the ref really quick, it was just one of those sequence plays where he actually could have stayed in. He walked off the court. So there's little things like that can change or make or break a game. So
That's cool, and that's a pretty cool selling point for Mark for trying to get people to take the ref test. I think it's like, take the ref test; it will also help you improve your game. That's an interesting take on it. Going to you, Vaughn. What teams did you notice that changed or gave you like a rough time, or that you wanted to comment on?
I'll echo what kind of everyone else has said about Voodoo. They looked stronger this round than they did last. Outlaws, I think, definitely looked stronger this round than they did last round. Those guys have been putting in quite a bit of work at our practices on Mondays. Anthony sets up practices every Monday, and you can come and practice as a team or fill in, for teams that don't have enough people. And they've been pretty consistent about being there, most of them. And it showed. They definitely played a lot better this round than they did. They gave us a good run for our money. And in that finals match, that was a really crazy back and forth match. Obviously Dodgetronic played, light years better than they did last round. Carbon adding, like Joe said, Jalen helped them a lot. They didn't have a great tournament, and he was a lot of the games that I watched, he was a difference maker, whether it was his catching or just being an offensive threat. But he definitely won a lot of games for that team, and he's a good pickup for them, especially just having kind of his leadership and experience playing with Dynasty, who's one of the better teams in the country, and bringing some of that to Carbon. Hopefully that can rub off on them, and they can learn a lot and go further with it. But other than that, I think that was kind of more of the teams that improved.
Nice. I don't want to stick on it too much, but I think it's pretty cool that Dodgetronic Supersonic went from getting knocked out immediately all the way to third place. Definitely, whatever they did, they should obviously continue doing. Do they normally place that high? Is that common for them, or was that something just came out of nowhere?
No, they're pretty consistently in that 3, 4, 5 area. When they make it, like Ben had said last podcast, last year they were pretty much non-existent. But whenever they've been there, they've pretty consistently been in that kind of middle of the grouping, 3 to 5, maybe 6. But they've been pretty consistent about it. Gotcha.
So I wanted to ask also kind of similar question to what I asked Joseph. You guys had the Ball Wars tournament as well, right? Is that what it's called? Dallas Dodgeball Ball Wars?
Dodge War, yeah.
Dodge War, yeah. Yikes, okay. Thought I had a handle on that one. Did that help you guys at all? And this can go to all of you guys prepare for this tournament?
So it was foam, so maybe not in the ball type aspect, but that last one here, I guess Dodge War, was the first time Kim had come and played with us. And there was really no talk about him staying with us or playing with us consistently until after that tournament. And after that tournament, immediately, most of our team was like, you need to ask him to play with us. So it was such a natural fit that we were going to do pretty much everything we could to try to. I mean, he was saying too on the ride home from the tournament that he liked the idea of getting to play with us more. And so after that tournament, because of it being such a natural fit and him playing really well, especially with Mike and Elijah, I think that was a good build up going into Elite for us.
Nice.
Yeah, I agree. I think, we needed someone to fill in, and we had just seen Kim at round 1 for Elite. So we asked him to come down and play the foam tournament with us. And with our team, especially, Mikey, Elijah, Kathy, Joe, Marie, me, kind of having more of the family dynamic, it's a little harder for people I guess, fit in. Like it's a little bit different dynamic than it is for most teams, where it's, you know, a bunch of friends or maybe even sometimes people who don't particularly like each other. So for someone to kind of come in and just immediately mesh with our team and feel like they've been playing with us for a long time is a big deal. And the way he kind of handled himself and the way he fit in with all of us, and like Joe said, especially Mikey and Elijah, told us that he would be a really good pickup for him, or for us, sorry. And like Joe said, there wasn't a lot of talk before that about adding him. It was really just going to be a one tournament deal, but you know, things happen, and there was kind of a big controversy about it on some of the Facebook threads. I don't remember which article or whatever it was in particular, but I wasn't part of the conversations with Mark and Glenn. That was more of a Joe thing. But you know, we did all the stuff we needed to do to make sure he was going to be okayed and cleared to play with us. And if Joe wants to elaborate on that, he can, because he had those discussions. But yeah, just to get the elephant in the room out there, out of the way, we talked and we did our research with the higher ups at Elite. So whenever we found out that he could play with us, and he, you know, Stingers was kind of up in the air whether they were going to be able to play or stay together or whatever it was, he was interested in coming over. And so there was a mutual interest there, and it just worked out. Good for us that it worked out.
Right.
But yeah.
Gotcha. Might get into that. I did want to ask, just because she's been pretty silent for a while, Marie, did you have anything that you noticed from your perspective? Were you able to watch Open?
Yeah, I did. I saw, we already commented on Dontronic, and I fully agree with that. There was a moment I was watching one of their games against Outsiders, and I fully thought that they were going to take that whole match that it was. Did they win, you guys? I don't think they did. I think it was 2-1. But, I was biting my nails on it. I agree with Outlaws. Again, I thought it could have gone either way when it came to getting into that championship match. And the way that everybody was playing, it did go back and forth, and it was a tight match. So I think all of those things have already been said. It was, I think, if we get into talking about certain players, and I think we will, I probably have some more comments. I think when we talk about women's too, I'll get into a little bit more. But overall, on women's, what my main takeaway is that the teams came out more, or even more, as teams, where last round we were just starting. Everyone, at least the first, second, third teams, were just really well put together as teams, and it was nice to see that dynamic forming and continuing to grow. And I think it played out on the court during the bracket play, and so we'll elaborate on that a little bit more when we get there.
Awesome. Definitely want to delve into that some more, but I do have one more question for Joe and Vaughn specifically, and that question was, what did you guys do to stay as a first place team? You kind of touched a little bit on how was it Kim Vaughn? What was his name?
Yeah, Kim Wynn.
So you kind of maybe picked up on how that might have helped you guys, but what else did you guys do to kind of help you guys secure victory? And it looks like you had to beat Outsiders or Outlaws twice, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you guys lost to Outlaws earlier in the bracket play, right?
Right. Yeah. So that was actually the only game the only match we lost all day. We kind of rolled through round robin play undefeated, and then they beat us 2-1 in the bracket play, sent us down to the losers bracket. So we had to beat them twice in the final, and we were able to pull it out both times.
Nice. What did you, and maybe you can take this one, Joe. What did you guys do anything differently, or did you guys practice more? Was it just more experience, or did you guys come in thinking we're going to just take it all, or what happened there?
I mean, of course we came and think we were going to take it all, but so with the addition, especially of Kim and Elijah coming around too, it changed the dynamic of our team a little bit. So in round one, we had much more of a catching base, and we were sitting a little more on the back line. And for this tournament, with Elijah and Kim being super athletic, and then Jake can hang with them, and Mikey can hang with them, that side of the court was just bouncing all over the place, and we were being real active and pushing people back and pressure, and played a little differently this time than we did, especially in round one. And I think that took a lot of the teams that we played against in round robin, especially, maybe not in bracket because they saw it already, but when we played against teams a lot for the first time in round robin, I think it took a lot of teams by surprise.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think, we definitely had kind of more practice time, but I think just adding Elijah, who's been one of the kind of foundations of our team, really helped us a lot. The way him and Mikey can kind of play off each other, for better or worse, is a difference maker for us. And then having Kim be able to kind of jump straight into that helped us a lot. And then Jake, like Joe said, Jake's a pretty athletic guy, and he was able to get up there and do some things that we've never really seen him do before. He was at the line just baiting people into throws, just giving us ball control or throwing bad balls that we could catch. And Jake had the best tournament that I've ever seen Jake have. He was on fire. If I had to name an MVP for that tournament, it would definitely be Jake. And in the moment, I didn't realize how well he was doing. And then I went back and I watched the entire live stream that they posted on Twitch, and I was just like, man, Jake was incredible yesterday, and he was definitely a big part of us winning. He had a bigger role for us than he usually does. So, he showed us kind of what he can really do whenever he has those opportunities. And because, I mean, guys like me and Joe and, Cody, we're not the type of guys who can just jump, 6 feet off the ground or whatever, or have these crazy acrobatic dodges. But whenever you get the boys and Jake up there, just baiting people into throws, making great dodges, giving us ball control, it gives us an advantage. And this was the first tournament where all of those things were able to come together, and we were able to play a little bit different game, kind of stay with our normal strategy, but just have a lot more things go our way because they were giving us more opportunities, making more opportunities for us.
Nice. And do you get his full name, Jake?
Jake Hebert, Hebert.
Nice. Definitely have to look out for him. Cool. And I guess this is a pretty good segue into just now discussing some of the players that stood out. In addition to Jake Vaughn, did anybody else catch your eye that has not been mentioned yet?
Yeah, Elijah Hashimoto for us. He wasn't at round one. He's still in high school, so for round one he had to stay behind for a baseball tournament. But having him there, he showed off what he can do. Everyone's always kind of known that he can catch, and he definitely caught in round two. But we moved him over to the corner for the first time. He's normally kind of played more in the middle for us, and we've been working him out at the corner, and it's been going really well. So people saw more of his offensive threat too this round than maybe he's done in the past. Who else stood out? The Boo guy from Dodgetronic, like I said, he brought a whole new energy to that team, and he was definitely their biggest weapon offensively. Jonathan Harper for Outlaws. When I was going back watching the live stream, reviewing video, he was just, especially in round robin, he was just killing guys from his corner. Every time someone came up to the line, they'd get countered, or whenever he'd go up offensively, he was just tearing people up, and people didn't really seem to have an answer for him a lot of the time. Anthony Miller is always a bet to have a good day offensively, and he leads that team. And he's always consistent with his play. He'll make the catches and he'll no look guys and that don't see it coming.
Gotcha. How about you, Joseph?
All those players there, I mean, I'll second all that on all of them. I'd like to add George had a couple of good runs there, especially with outsiders there. That he was doing pretty good, and a couple of the other teams he was getting a lot of catches. And just a side note on Jake, that's the same Jake from your Minnesota podcast that was with us. He went up with us from the Wrecking Balls. Jake's something else. He's an incredible player. He's got a good spirit to him. He always lifts everybody up. So just to put that out there. For my team, we actually made a swap. We had Juana step down for 8.5, and then we brought Matthew Martinez, which was from our original team, back up. His schedule finally cleared up, so we made that switch. He helps us out because one of the things I feel like we're always kind of in short base is accuracy and throwing arms, so he helped us out a lot. I do want to give a shout out to Juana though, because they did pretty good with her team in the women's division.
Yeah, they won.
Yeah, they won. So
yeah. That's pretty good.
It was a plus thing for her.
Yeah.
Dodgetronic Boo, he comes in. He's come to some of our foam tournaments before. The guy is a beast. I don't remember him being as loud as that, like he was in this tournament, but he was definitely loud. But there's definitely several players. Rage had some good moments. Carbon had a lot of good moments. Trying to go back through all of them. Voodoo taking heads. Von Kelly here was taking heads. It was a really good tournament.
Awesome.
Yeah, actually, one more that I want to mention real quick before we get into someone else, and so I don't forget. Randy from Hitman. So Randy's played with Hitman for a long time, even I guess back when Joe played with Hitman back in the day. And he came, and it was just him and David were the only two kind of main Hitman guys that came, but he had a better day at the tournament than I've probably ever seen him play. He's left-handed, and he was just tearing guys up. He was surviving. He was usually last one in when I would look over or when I'd walk up to their court, and he was just on target more so than I've ever seen him before. So Randy had a really good day for Hitman.
Nice. And this is Randy. What's his last name?
Garza.
Was he the one with the hat or the mohawk?
The hat.
The hat, yeah.
Cool. And how about you, Joe? Anybody aside from who was previously mentioned that you noticed?
Let's see. I got Boo on mine. I got Jake. I got Elijah. I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to pretty much second all of that. I thought Boo made a huge difference. Elijah and Jake. I mean, to not sound like I'm only bragging on my own team, Elijah and Jake brought us back from a 1-on-6 to win one of our matches in the finals against Outlaws.
Oh, wow.
And that's the kind of day that they were both having. So Elijah caught one on a 1-on-6, brought Jake back in. Jake caught another one, and we ended up coming back and winning that match. And, yeah, again, that's the kind of day that they were having. So
nice. And how about you, Marie?
Yeah.
I saw you. Go ahead, Vaughn.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think, we came in really confident that everyone was going to be playing well. On the Monday practice leading up to that, we had our full team there for the first time in a while, and we were killing everybody. Usually, even in practice, Outlaws plays us really close, but on Monday at practice, we were rolling through Outlaws, and Corey Larson actually messaged me after the Monday practice, and he was like, dude, you guys were just crazy good tonight. And so I think we came in really confident that everyone was going to have a good day. Outlaws definitely came in and had a good day than they had at that Monday, or a better day than they had at that Monday practice. But, I think having that week leading up to round two and how well we've been playing for that week or two before, I think it boosted everyone. Jake, Elijah, Mikey, me, Cody, Joe. I think that's one of the things that really helped us and gave us a big confidence boost.
There is one that I forgot to mention. Wes from Voodoo. Was he there at round one?
I don't remember seeing him, to be honest, but he might have been.
I mean, I knew who he was, and I've played against him before, but he made some big catches for them, and kept them in some close games, and it definitely impressed me. So yeah, Wes from Voodoo needed a shout out.
Awesome. Do you by chance know his last name?
I have him on my Facebook. I can look.
It's like Haggard or Hogard, something like that.
Gotcha.
Starts with an H and ends with an R.
I'm sure he'll know it's him then. That's all that matters.
Wesley Hogard, Hoggard.
Nice. Very cool. And how about you, Marie? Did you any players that you might have noticed from your perspective that haven't been mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to make sure that Harper got called out and mentioned, and he did. I think certainly. Hey Joseph, I was going to ask you, did Justin Ashby make it to this tournament? And if so, how did he do? Because I've been so impressed with his play, and I didn't necessarily notice him this time, so I didn't know if
he actually had quite a few crazy plays. The one guy from Hitman, he got hit right in the chest, and Justin somehow managed to dive out with one hand and got his hand underneath the ball before it, hit the ground and scooped it up. He had a few other plays. I'm just trying to remember he had another one where he managed to, it was right there by the ref. He jumped up, caught the ball in the air, managed to get his 2 feet in, and then fell out of bounds. But they ruled it the momentum catch the way he set it all up. So, I mean, he's always phenomenal. Every time I see him come out there, he did really good. People were definitely gunning for him a lot more. I know people are getting wise to him and Nick and some of their tactics. So there's definitely something for us to work on up until round 3. But I felt like he was definitely targeted a lot more than normal, finding himself in a little bit more pickles. People are starting to figure out how to get him out. So he stays in. He's just hard to hit. So
yeah, one of the things that I've noticed that y'all did, and I'm not sure I've noticed this before, but on some of the teams that were maybe a little slower on the rush, Justin would actually go up on the rush himself, just by himself. And he's so fast that he would clear all 3 balls before the other team had a chance with 2 people. And it was cracking me up. He didn't do it against us, but we have a little bit faster guys with Jake and Elijah running. But on some of the slower teams, I noticed he'd just take off by himself, and he'd still manage to clear all 3 balls, and Nick would still manage to take someone out on the rush. So
we started doing that. I don't know if anybody else really. You're the first one, I guess, to really mention it, because I always worried about it, because I'm like, you're the only one rushing. We try to have other people rush with them, and we don't get the same results we do with one guy going up there and doing it because he can do it. We do have some other things that kind of work with it, but yeah, he's definitely just he gets up there, he can clear those balls. I mean, he can get him out there across, he can protect himself, he can get out of there, he can actually clear the line. But like I said, with teams like where you got like Elijah, Mikey, and Jake all running up there, it's a little harder, a little bit more difficult for him to do it by himself. So we definitely got to send somebody else.
That's an interesting strategy. So he gets all 3. Does he roll them back?
Man, no, man, it's full tosses. He runs all the way up. He granny tosses 2 of them really quick, and then has the 3rd one for himself.
Wow, that's interesting.
It's pretty crazy to watch in action, like how fast and how efficiently he gets it all done. Like, I really have no idea how he does it. I mean, I certainly could never do it. If I could even get to the line, which would be, one feat in itself, but to get my hands on all the balls and get them to someone else, it's crazy the way he does it.
I wouldn't have thought to describe it as granny tossing it, but yeah, he definitely throws some granny shots at people.
I mean, that paints a pretty
That's the only thing I can think to call
picture.
it, like granny rolling a bowling ball, but it's just like, here you go.
That's crazy. I'll have to, I keep saying this, but I'll have to look at that too and see if I can catch that happening, maybe on like a recap video, or if they go to nationals.
We actually recorded, one of my good friends, Anna, was actually able to set up the camera and record all of our 8.5 matches. So it kind of worked out for us and saved some
nice.
battery time and that running around court, stuff like that. So I can send it to you here later on, but I have it on our webpage as well, or our Facebook page.
Cool. Yeah, I'd like to see how that's done, and maybe borrow that move. Just try it out. So moving on to women's, Marie, what was the main difference overall? I know we kind of touched up on it a little bit, but just to kind of bring back the conversation, let's start with that real quick question.
Yeah, I think, for using like group dynamics or something like that, we were moving from that forming stage into more of a, kind of storming and norming when it comes to team formation. I think we ended up moving this tournament to a 5v5 format, which wasn't an official elite format before this round, and they worked with us to make that happen. And so that certainly was different for us. And then just overall, we had 3 teams return as more or less the same team. So we had Caught Up, led by Lizette Martinez, that came out, and they were, I think they had one player. They had one player change out because we went to a 5 people on the court. But they also added Juana Maldonado to their team. But aside from that, we had WMD return, and they were, I think the entire team was the same. They had brought 5 to round 1 and just kind of rotated the 5th person in. And then the team from New Orleans, they had a couple changes as well, added a 5th person, but their core people were the same. And so those 3 teams, it was clear, had a chance to practice, work on more strategy. And so just watching the teams gel a little bit more and solidify, it really made a difference in the rest of the time. So we added Sirens this round, and they were brand new, with the exception of, I believe, Alex, who had played with us in Southern Glory last time. She captained Sirens as a new team. And then my team, I kept 3 members, Kathy Martinez, and then Sky Harrison, and we added 2 new. So the Southern Glory and Sirens were more or less new. The other 3 really had a chance to work together and play, and it really showed on the court.
Gotcha. And so this was too many questions at once. So it went from 4 to 5. Did you feel like, I guess can you use that as like a metric of success for the first round?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we expected as we got closer to the Dallas area or DFW that we would increase in numbers, just because we have been growing the women's, just the number of women playing within Dallas, but really a lot of it's coming out of Fort Worth and the leagues that they have out there. So we expected to be able to have more women participate if they weren't traveling all the way to New Orleans. When it came down to Shreveport, there was still some travel involved. There was still some scheduling difficulties, but we were able to pick up more people that wanted to come out and play. And I do think that was a little bit to the success of round 1, but I think maybe even more than that, just the advocacy that the women have tried to have, in their local leagues to try and recruit women and say, hey, come out and play with us. I think just having the opportunity in round 1 gave it more legitimacy, I guess, maybe for round 2.
Because it was like maybe they saw it as like it's a real thing now. It's actually not going to happen, but it's happened. So
yeah, there were teams that they could recruit them onto, right? Hey, you want to come play with Weapons of Mass Destruction or Caught Up or whatever, right? Yes. I mean, there were teams that people could play, and there were people who wanted to play in round 1 based on the initial kind of recruitment that just couldn't make that date or couldn't make the travel work. So I fully expect when we get to round 3, which is going to be in Dallas, that we will, either be able to add a fifth team for 5v5 or even go to 6v6.
Nice. So that was one of the follow-up questions I was going to ask is, do you foresee a potential 6v6 team format for next round?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, there's a couple questions for me is, of course, whether that date works or not for people, right? But beyond that, because again, these teams weren't together and these players weren't part of Elite when the dates were announced back in December, right? So it's not like everybody just already had these dates on their calendar and had them blocked off. So there's some scheduling component to it. But I'm curious to see whether the ladies from New Orleans are going to be able to travel out to DFW. It's certainly a bigger commute than even Shreveport. So I'm hoping they can join us again. And then hopefully we're able to grow the teams by one more person.
Awesome. Well, it's definitely, problem's a problem, right? But it's still a good problem to have where it's dates that are conflicting now versus there's just nobody that wants to play. It's just
right.
Lack of interest.
Yeah, so it's good.
It's
good. It's good. Yeah. I think the other thing too that was different about this tournament that I noticed was, round one was all about getting started. And so it was less about keeping our teams together, less about, even just, we were certainly playing by Elite rules and all that, but there was so much learning involved and so much consideration for the fact that so many people were new to Elite. This round, there was a lot of confusion about rules, a lot of, I say confusion, but I really mean more like growth, right? We were trying to make sure that everybody was clear on it and it was clear on the different rules. And that was, I don't want to call it a pain point. It really was a growth opportunity for all the women here. And I think, I and some of the others were trying to make sure that those things were called out and addressed in a constructive way so that people learned more, and it was something that people were prepared, because we have a lot of people who are intending to go to certainly round 3, but then possibly even nationals. And, across when we get to nationals, some of the things that we were seeing here, both in playing and reffing, just from rule confusion and that kind of thing, they're just not gonna, it's not gonna help anybody if they aren't aware of, some of these rules or just clarifications that needed to be made. So, there was a lot of kind of that, which led to, I think, a little bit of conflict for people. But I think overall, everyone, again, is committed to making this work. And I think I heard a lot of the teams comment about, the people down here who are playing are so nice. And, everyone's still apologizing when it's a hard hit and those kinds of things, which, I like that atmosphere where everybody's still wanting to support each other and encourage each other without being, without losing the competitive nature of the sport.
That's very cool. So it's kind of like growing pains, and it's good conflict, and it's just gonna help propel the women's division for the South region even further. Do want to ask, because I was looking at the comparison of this bracket versus South round 1. It looks like Caught Up definitely kind of stepped up a little bit. Did you notice anything with them in particular that we might have missed, or?
Well, I think, there were a couple things. When we had round 1, when we were playing, I think Southern Glory, Caught Up, Weapons of Mass Destruction, and Throw Me Something, they all were pretty equal teams. And as I was playing round 1, I thought, well, any one of these teams could really put this together and win. And round 2, Caught Up was still right up in there. I think during round robin, I don't know that they stood out quite as much as they did when they came into bracket play. The difference really was they had committed to playing together, as far as I could tell, right away after round 1. They were going to play together for round 2. When they added Juana to to their team. It just added another experienced player. One of the South women, she's one who is experienced for a few years in playing Elite. She's played 8.5. She's played no sting, even at nationals. And so she's a good experienced player, and she was on her game this tournament. So she was a big win for them. But the other person I'd call out on their team is Valerie. She is newer to the sport as far as I know, but certainly new to Elite. And so she had her first round under her belt. And afterward, certainly in round 2, she was more experienced and ready to play. And I think she's helping, even though Lizette is the captain, I think she certainly, Valerie certainly has a leadership presence on the court, and is definitely a threat to the other teams. The other thing that happened here, at least in Dallas, is we started a women's practice on a weekly basis, separate from anything else that we've been doing. And so thank you to the Fort Worth women who traveled so far over to the east side of Dallas to practice, and thanks to Cody for helping facilitate that, and some of the men from the other teams helped facilitate and coach and train us as well. But we were able to get in some good practice with no sting. We don't play no sting out here in this area. I think Fort Worth does some, but in Dallas we don't. And so it was a good opportunity for us to practice. We ran drills. The teams that were together, like Weapons of Mass Destruction and Caught Up, they had an opportunity to play together as well and start thinking about, where are they going to play on the court and who's going to do what, and start to run some plays. And that showed when it came time to play this weekend.
Nice. That's really cool. So, I mean, going from no division at all to now we have practices. I mean, it's definitely. Would it be fair to say, like, actually, let me stop myself real quick, because I was gonna say, is it like a testament to the work that you put in? But I don't want to put you on the spot, so I don't know if that's like a fair assessment to say, or.
I don't know that I get the credit for that. I think that I certainly opened the door maybe and had the conversations and kind of fought some where I needed to fight, but I think the other women have been the ones making it happen, stepping up, and they went through that door, and they've really been leading the charge for their teams. I can't really take too much credit for their success. For sure. Yeah, it's definitely not like a solo endeavor, and you're not playing all the games by yourself, but you definitely got the conversation going, and it's be curious to see like how it's going to turn out for round 3 and in future years. So it's very cool to see that it's moving up and developing versus regressing and whatnot. Yeah. Very cool. I do want to ask, well, I guess we can start with Joe. Did you get to see any of the women's division?
Yeah, I got to watch a pretty good portion of it.
What teams did you notice that may not have been covered already?
What's the team from New Orleans? Right?
Throw me something, sister.
So they impressed me quite a bit at round 1, and again this round they did a lot of good things, but in terms of that team, I kind of expected them again to come out and do real well, and they did do well. But Caught Up showed a lot of team chemistry and seemed like they were just out teaming everybody. Like they were, again, kind of how I talked about one of the other teams earlier. I don't remember, but they were communicating. They were all over the place. They looked really cohesive compared to the majority of the other teams that were playing.
Gotcha. And how about you, Joseph? Did you get a chance to check out any of the women's division events or teams?
Yeah, no, I got to watch a little bit of it. I definitely wanted to kind of keep up with Juana because she was on our 8.5 team. She plays with us in our other recreational tournaments here. So I try to lean on her when I can, or give her some support if I notice anything kind of going on. She's always real receptive of that. She knows what she's doing. She can play. But Caught Up did really good. That's Lissette. I'm friends with her husband Juan, and Vanya's on that team. It's a solid team. They know what they're doing. I don't know some of the other teams. I see Southern Glory. They do their thing. They're Kathy and Marie, and they're doing their thing. They're really good power players in there. And then, but I didn't get to do a whole lot of watching on that. Just a few of the games.
Gotcha. And then, how about you, Vaughn?
Yeah, I watched a bit of it. I was pretty impressed with the New Orleans team again. I think, at least as far as I know, most of those girls play regularly in their league, and they use that ball. So that's something that they're more familiar with. So it's not shocking to see them do well or improving. I think they play a lot in New Orleans, kind of in, maybe not as that team, but they get a lot of experience individually. I think the practices have really helped a lot, not only for just sort of the individual skills, but a lot of the nuances of the game, particularly with like strategy and stuff. I saw a lot more strategy this time than I did in round one. Players covering each other, talking a lot more, stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and especially for the teams that stay together, like I thought WMD played really well. I thought Christy Stevens had, from the games that I saw, she had a really good day.
And she's coming off an injury too, right? So she's got one of those fun pinky injuries. So I was impressed by that too.
Describe fun.
Yes.
Well, I say that certainly sarcastically, still not having a straight pinky after 9 months. So
yeah, I kind of picked. That's what I figured. Like, like it's going at an angle permanently, or you just can't point it. Vaughn, I think I might have cut you off on accident. Did you have more to comment on Christy or some of the other teams or players?
Oh yeah, no worries. I just thought Christy was really good. She was on target most of the time that I saw. She was good, kind of protecting the others from the corner. I thought Jen played pretty good, Jen Woodley. I don't know the two newer girls on Caught Up, but they were pretty good. They had some strong throws. They left themselves in, their positioning was good, stuff like that. For girls, I don't know them, so I don't know how much they play, but they seem to be catching on pretty quickly as far as how to play, where to be, what you need to be doing, stuff like that. And I don't know their names, or else I would call them out, but Marie probably knows them, I'm sure. But I thought Danny Kennedy, who we talked about last time from New Orleans, she played pretty well. I just don't know a lot of names. The smaller girl on the New Orleans
Johnson.
team.
I'm not going to let that go this time. It was Christine Johnson. I had to make sure I figured out her name this time, but that's her name.
She's good. I like her. She's the smallest person you've probably ever seen.
But she's so fierce and fast, and I absolutely love. She plays across from me because she rushes, and I like to play in the left corner, and so she plays across from me, and I absolutely love it. She's definitely something to fight. Yeah,
she seemed like she got a lot more aggressive this round about her throws. Like last round, it seemed like she was pump faking everybody down, and she's so hard to hit. But I think people started to pick up last round that she wasn't going to ever throw. And this time I saw her throwing quite a bit when people were kind of shrugging her off like she wasn't going to. Another shout out for Christine Johnson is she helped us out with some jumper cables in the parking lot after the tournament. So good on her.
She's just completely changing the game around, just helping out all around.
I don't want to miss another person that I was impressed by, who was Bianca Wolf. So she plays in our recreational team, but she hasn't played in a while, at least not that I've seen. And so she came out and joined Sirens, and having not played for a while, and I don't remember if she's ever played in Elite. She she did really good for her first tournament out, and I was impressed by that. Glad to see it.
Nice.
One more. Marie had some like filthy headshots, and she apologized for every single one of them, but she was killing it with some counters.
Nice. So I don't want to say you're a headhunter, but are you known for headshots, Marie, or just?
I mean, I certainly don't intend to, but I do know that I have a hard throw, and so if it hits their face, I feel bad.
Sorry.
She's the opposite of me on headshots.
That's true. That's true. But I think we may have been equal in number this time. So.
I offer no apologies.
No, you don't.
Apologize to no one. Nice. I'll keep that in mind if I ever square off against you then, Vaughn. Like, all right, no apologies here. See how it goes.
Yeah, it was. I mean, for me, this tournament, it was a different level. I mean, I usually collect a few, but this tournament I had, between the two divisions, I had at least 15.
Didn't you have someone yelling at you at one point?
Yeah, one of the Dodgetronic guys screamed at me because I didn't realize this. I had hit him in the face with an 8.5 ball, and then switching over to no sting, I immediately hit him in the face again with a no sting ball. So he let me know that he didn't appreciate it, and I said, no apologies. Come to play.
At least you're consistent across the balls. Well, cool. I mean, we obviously kind of transitioned into players now that stood out in the women's. And I did want to give Joseph a chance to mention anybody that he had not already called out before we moved on.